Breaking news today. The Southern California synagogue where a Jewish protester was killed has been rocked by his death. A longtime member of Temple Etz Chaim, Paul Kessler, fell and fatally struck his head over the weekend during dueling Israel-Hamas war protests in Thousand Oaks, California, synagogue leaders said during a Wednesday night vigil. The Ventura County Sheriff's Office reported that the 69-year-old Jewish supporter of Israel fell backward during an altercation with a pro-Palestinian protester, sustained a fatal injury, and later died at a hospital. Conflicting witness statements have made it difficult to determine the exact cause of Kessler's fall, so while his death has been ruled a homicide, investigators have not yet determined whether the incident was a hate crime or other criminal offense. Senior Rabbi Ari Averbach of the Thousand Oaks Synagogue said at the vigil that many in the Jewish community are fearful for their safety as a result of the incident. When one of our own is killed, it makes us question our safety as a group. The rabbi explained that this sentiment is built into us as Jews. Averbach, however, insisted that the outpouring of sympathy for the synagogue in the wake of Kessler's death should be a source of solace. The rabbi noted that prominent members of the Muslim and Christian communities have reached out in love, condemning the violence of neighbor against neighbor, and that nearly every government official on every level and across the aisle has also expressed support. The investigation into the fight and Kessler's fall is ongoing, and authorities have asked that anyone with footage, photos, or eyewitness accounts come forward. We're still waiting to see evidence of what occurred in that interaction, and whether or not there was a blow to the face that caused the fall, or if Mr. Kessler fell, without that being the precipitating event, Ventura County Sheriff Jim Freihoff said Tuesday. Deputies questioned a man, 50, from nearby Moorpark at the scene and later searched his home, according to Freihoff. So far, there have been no arrests. Averbach told CNN that Kessler and his family have been regulars at Temple Etz Chaim since the 1990s, and that the father of two wasn't a troublemaker. In an interview with CNN, the rabbi described the family's state of disbelief and perplexity. The family was shocked to learn that, just a few days ago he was a normal retiree living in a quiet neighborhood, and so for him to get caught up in all of this, it's not what they were expecting. Kessler had accompanied a neighbor to the protest on Sunday. It was one of many similar rallies held across the United States in either support of Israel or in protest of its retaliation for the October 7 Hamas attacks, which killed over 1,400 people. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health in Ramallah, citing sources in the Hamas-controlled enclave, more than 10,000 people have been killed in Gaza as a result of Israel's military offensive. Rabbi Michel Pascal, speaking at Wednesday night's vigil, recalled that Kessler stood up to defend Israel, and wasn't afraid. The affirmation of life is ours. She emphasized, we don't want to hate. The second clause reads, and we don't want to be hated. Averbach pointed out that the tragedy occurred on the same day as the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht, a series of violent Nazi attacks against Jews in Germany in 1938, and the 2018 shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. This is a moment that we will never forget, Averbach said. We have a lot on our minds and hearts right now. The events of this past week were therefore shocking and appalling. Jeremy Paris, the chief of police in Thousand Oaks, California, has called the recent uptick in anti-Semitism in the city mind-blowing. Paris told the vigil attendees, "I'm so sorry what you're going through. I've been telling many people that if you asked me 6 weeks ago about what's happening in our community could happen, I would not believe you." The police chief admitted, "My eyes have been opened." Fears of hate-motivated attacks have increased in Jewish, Muslim, and Palestinian communities since the conflict broke out in the Middle East last month. Following Hamas's October 7 attack on Israel, the Anti-Defamation League reported a nearly 400% increase in anti-Semitic incidents. Local authorities have not yet determined what led to Kessler's fatal fall during the altercation with the pro-Palestinian protester. However, pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian witnesses interviewed on the scene gave conflicting accounts of what happened and who the aggressor was, as stated by Freihoff on Tuesday. Two groups, Freedom for Palestine, and We Are Pro-Israel, held protests at a major intersection in Thousand Oaks at the same time, drawing between 75 and 100 people, according to the sheriff. After receiving multiple reports of an assault possibly connected to the protests, the sheriff said that deputies arrived on the scene shortly before 3:30 p.m. Kessler was lying on the ground when they arrived, and blood could be seen coming from his mouth and head. At the scene and during transport to the hospital, Kessler was alert and able to communicate with his caregivers. The suspect was identified at the scene, and the sheriff said he was cooperative and told deputies he called 911 after Kessler fell during the fight. Dr. Christopher Young, the chief medical examiner for Ventura County, said that despite being listed in critical condition, Kessler's condition deteriorated and he was pronounced dead shortly after 1 a.m. Kessler died from blunt force trauma to the head, Young said on Tuesday. Young also noted that the 69-year-old had non-fatal injuries to his face in addition to skull fractures, brain swelling, bruising, and other injuries consistent with a fall. The medical examiner said that just because Kessler's death was classified as a homicide does not mean that criminal charges will be filed. It's just saying that another person was responsible for or contributed to the death, Young explained. The district attorney's office will determine whether the homicide warrants criminal charges, he added.